Hairy frog. This frog has retractable claws, and the way it gets them is pure horror movie. When something grabs it, the hairy frog clenches a muscle that snaps its own toe bones, then drives the broken, jagged end straight out through the skin of its feet. There's no neat little sheath like a cat's claw. It literally turns its skeleton into knives by breaking itself on purpose. Scientists nicknamed it the Wolverine frog, and that's not an exaggeration because nobody's entirely sure how it pulls the bones back in once the threat is gone. The hairy part is just as strange. During breeding season, the males grow what look like fuzzy sideburns down their flanks. They aren't hair at all. They're thin strands of skin packed with blood vessels, basically extra gills, letting a dad guarding a clutch of eggs underwater pull in more oxygen than his lungs ever could. So it's a frog that breathes through its hairy thighs and stabs you with shattered foot bones. Evolution clearly had a weird afternoon. Spanish-ribbed newt. Imagine your defense mechanism is shoving your own rib cage out through your skin. That's this newt's entire strategy. When a predator threatens it, the Iberian-ribbed newt swings its ribs forward at an angle and pushes them right through special pores along its sides, turning its skeleton into a row of poison-tipped spikes. As the ribs break the surface, they pass through glands that coat each one in toxin, so anything that bites down gets a mouthful of venomous bone. The newt feels no real harm from this. Its skin has no fixed wounds. The ribs slide back in and the holes seal up, ready for next time. It can do this over and over its whole life with no sign of infection, which is part of why researchers are obsessed with it. This is an animal that solved the problem of how do I become inedible by deciding its ribs would make excellent steak knives. Wolverine had to go to a lab for his. This newt was just born that way. Alaskan wood frog. This frog dies every winter and comes back every spring. When the cold hits, the wood frog doesn't burrow deep or find warmth. It just lets itself freeze. Up to 2/3 of the water in its body turns to ice. Its heart stops beating. Its brain goes silent. Its blood stops moving entirely. By every normal measure, it is a small, frozen corpse buried under the leaf litter. The trick is what it does before the freeze. It floods its cells with massive amounts of glucose and urea, a kind of natural antifreeze that keeps the ice from forming inside the cells and shredding them. The ice stays in the safe spaces between cells instead. Then it waits, frozen solid, sometimes for weeks, sometimes through repeated freeze and thaw cycles. When spring warms the ground, the heart simply flickers back on, the blood starts flowing, and the frog hops away like nothing happened. It's the closest thing nature has to hitting pause on death itself. Planarian. You cannot kill this thing by cutting it. The Planarian is a tiny flatworm, the kind you'd find in a pond, and it has the most absurd regeneration ability on Earth. Slice it in half, and the head grows a new tail, while the tail grows a new head, with a brand new brain. Cut it into a dozen pieces, and you get a dozen complete worms. People have chopped a single Planarian into hundreds of fragments and watched each one rebuild itself into a whole animal. The secret is that up to 1/5 of its body is made of adult stem cells that can become any tissue it needs. These worms essentially refuse to age. Their cells keep replacing themselves indefinitely, which makes the Planarian functionally immortal, barring accidents. It even keeps its memories after regrowing a head, which means a worm can relearn a trained behavior faster than a fresh one, raising the deeply uncomfortable question of where exactly a memory lives if you can grow a new brain and still remember. African spiny mouse. This mouse can lose its own skin and grow it back perfectly. Most animals, including us, heal wounds with scar tissue, ugly patches that never fully match the original. The African spiny mouse doesn't bother with scars. When a predator grabs it, large sheets of its skin simply tear away, and the mouse runs off naked, escaping the way a lizard drops its tail. Then it regenerates everything. New skin, new hair follicles, new sweat glands, even new cartilage. All rebuilt cleanly with no scar at all. It's the only mammal known to pull this off, and its skin tears far more easily than yours precisely so it can ditch it in an emergency. Researchers are studying it hard, because if we can figure out how a mammal regrows perfect tissue instead of scarring, it changes everything about how we heal human wounds. It's a rodent that treats its own skin as a disposable jacket and grows a flawless new one every time. Frilled lizard. Calm one second, terrifying the next, this lizard's superpower is pure theatrical intimidation. Most of the time, the frilled lizard looks ordinary, with a big flap of skin folded neatly around its neck like a closed umbrella. But threaten it, and everything changes in an instant. It snaps that frill wide open into a giant ruffled collar that can be as wide as a dinner plate, opens its bright yellow mouth, hisses, and suddenly looks 4 times its real size. The frill is stretched open by rods of cartilage connected to its jaw, so opening its mouth pops the whole display out at once. If the bluff doesn't work, it bolts, sprinting away on its 2 back legs with its body upright and tail out like a tiny, furious dinosaur. That's the whole con. It's a small, mostly harmless lizard that has perfected the art of looking like an absolute nightmare for 2 seconds, just long enough to make a predator hesitate and give it a head start. Woodpecker. This bird slams its face into solid wood about 20 times a second and walks away with a perfectly fine brain. If you took a human head and decelerated it the way a woodpecker's skull stops on every impact, you'd be looking at brain damage many times over. The woodpecker shrugs off forces that would scramble us completely. Its skull is built like a crash helmet, with spongy bone that absorbs shock, and a beak whose upper and lower halves are slightly different lengths to redirect the force away from the brain. Then there's the tongue, which is the truly bizarre part. It's so long it wraps all the way around the back of the skull and anchors near the nostrils, acting like a built-in seatbelt that cushions the brain on every blow. The brain itself is small, tightly packed, and oriented to spread impact over a wide area. So it can hammer away thousands of times a day, drilling for insects and carving nest holes, with a head engineered from the ground up to take a beating no other animal could survive. Sea sapphire. This is one of the most beautiful animals in the ocean, and its superpower is vanishing completely. The sea sapphire is a tiny copepod, smaller than a grain of rice, and the males shimmer in dazzling blues, golds, and greens, brighter than almost anything else in the sea. But here's the trick. That color isn't pigment. It comes from microscopic crystal plates stacked in layers inside their skin, spaced so precisely that they reflect one exact wavelength of light, like a living opal. And because it's structural color, the animal can switch it off. Tilt the angle just right, and the wavelength it reflects slides out of the visible range entirely, and the creature flat out disappears, blinking from a brilliant jewel into nothing. Sailors used to report flashes of blue fire in the water, and this was one of the culprits. It's an animal that can be the most eye-catching thing in the ocean one moment and turn completely invisible the next, just by changing how it catches the light. Pangolin. This is the only mammal on Earth wearing a full suit of armor, and that armor is made of the same stuff as your fingernails. The pangolin is covered head to tail in hard, overlapping scales of keratin, sharp-edged and tough enough that when the animal rolls into a tight ball, even lions and tigers usually give up. They can't bite through it, and they can't pry it open, so the pangolin just sits there, a living pine cone, and waits them out. Underneath the armor, it's a specialist ant and termite hunter with no teeth at all. Instead, it has claws to rip open nests and a tongue that is genuinely longer than its entire body, anchored way down near its pelvis and able to snake deep into tunnels to slurp up insects by the thousand. It eats tens of millions of them a year. The tragic twist is that its greatest defense is also its doom. Rolling into a ball makes it impossible for predators to handle, but trivially easy for a human to simply pick up, which is why it's the most trafficked mammal in the world.